Hello, David Clout. I'm Kate Malgoza, and today I'm here with Joni McGary. Ms. McGary is the mother of a college junior and co-founder of NoCollegeMandates.com. She is a former business owner and has worked in business development with the pharmaceutical and biotech industries. Welcome, Ms. McGary. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Kate.
So you recently wrote an article titled "Universities Receive Incentives for COVID-19 Vaccine Mandates, Federal Government Money Favors." Can you tell us a little bit about that article and what your findings were?
Sure. Again, my name is Joni McGary, and I'm the co-founder of NoCollegeMandates.com. And part of what we're doing is researching the motivations for colleges to be mandating COVID-19 vaccination for their students, because 1,000 campuses mandate and 325 of those mandate boosters. So our latest research efforts were to look at possible financial motivations behind these mandates, which appear on the surface quite insupportable by data and need, and I can get into that later. And so what we looked at is how much money do colleges, even private colleges, get from the federal government in the way of grants on a yearly basis. And what we did, so sort of to narrow our scope, is we took the 8 colleges of the Ivy League, and we looked at how much federal money they got in total. And what we found was that the 8 colleges of the Ivy League got a staggering $3.8 billion in 2021 from the federal government. Some of that money was COVID emergency fund related, the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund, but it was a pretty small percentage. The colleges generally get that amount. They've gotten it on an annual basis for the last several years. And about 68% of that money is from Department of Health and Human Services, and 62% is from the NIH. So again, that's a great deal of money to each college and university that's coming from the organizations that house the CDC and the FDA. And those grants are given to individual researchers for research in all sorts of different biological and health fields. And then there are other, of course, funding streams from like the Department of Defense, the Department of Education, from the Department of Agriculture. But we looked primarily at the NIH just to see what would be a possible conflict of interest there. And we were not surprised at the amount, but we felt like it needed to be elevated in the public conversation, because I think we need to look at why colleges are practicing medicine in this time with COVID-19, and what could be their possible conflicts of interest that would prevent them from doing their own risk-benefit analysis in-house.
So you mentioned how, other than the vast sum of money that they're getting, how these mandates would otherwise be pretty insupportable. Is there any like science that you know of that would indicate why mandates like this would be appropriate for students of this age group?
Well, I'd like to walk back to how they started to come into play. When colleges started to mandate these vaccines in the summer going into the fall of 2021. And as you'll recall, in the spring, a lot of campuses shut down completely because that's when the pandemic was in full force. And there was just a great deal of concern that the campuses would not be able to come back online. And I think there was a lot of fear and panic. When the vaccines rolled out, they were promoted by the public health industry, by the public health organizations, as a way to stop community spread. So the CDC said, if you take this vaccine, you will not contract the disease, you will not spread the disease. And if that were true, then I can see why it would be like really appealing to make sure that everyone in a closed community like a college would get the shot. However, we knew by the end of last summer, I think August 2021, I hope I have my years right here because sometimes it can get confusing, but we knew that the vaccines did not prevent community spread, but that was, widely ignored. And it was one of the primary arguments why the students needed to get these shots, not only to protect themselves, but to protect vulnerable members of the community, perhaps, older people more at risk, perhaps students who maybe weren't particularly healthy. And so I think that a lot of people jumped right on board in the fall of 2021 in that atmosphere of fear, and also in that atmosphere of believing these shots prevented you from catching and spreading COVID. Even then, I don't think there was a lot of analysis done on the particular risk for the student age population. We now know, based on a lot of data, that that age group is at a minuscule risk of serious illness or death from COVID. Very, very, very low. The otherwise healthy student, will clear COVID quite easily. And again, I'm not saying that for some it isn't a problem, but by and large, this population age group does not necessarily need this medical intervention to protect themselves from serious illness or death. And now that we know definitively that the shots don't prevent community spread, they ought not to have to take them to protect others in the community. So by, I would say, the end of last fall, those things were very, very clear in the scientific literature. And yet, a third of the colleges that mandated went ahead and announced a booster mandate. So it started to look really, on the surface, it didn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that these shots are being required. Certainly, it could be a choice, but the fact that they're being mandated for us begs the question of what is motivating this. And so again, we're starting to look at different reasons. One thing I would like to say is when we first started this work, we thought that there must be something at play. First of all, maybe the colleges had done their own risk-benefit analysis and come to a conclusion, their own conclusion. But what we've come to think, based on our experience with a lot of different colleges and talking to many, many different stakeholders, is that most colleges are simply following the CDC guidelines. And the CDC guidelines say that everybody over the age of 12 should have their primary series and should be boosted. I think I have the age right. So if that's the CDC guidance and their definition of up to date is being boosted, colleges are just following that. And so then we say, well, why would you follow guidance if you're an institution of higher learning that on the surface doesn't make sense from the scientific standpoint? And so we're just trying to figure out what is causing this groupthink. And, the first thing to look at, again, is the money. And one thing I want to say about that is we're not saying that the people receiving grants or the people receiving money are, corrupt or evil or, saying, oh, I'll take your money and we're going to make sure we get a lot of vaccines on the campus. That's not it at all. The point we're trying to make is that there is an environment in which a lot of money is flowing to the colleges. And I think we're all human beings, right? So if somebody's giving you a lot of money for your lab and you happen to be, say, the head of the scientific advisory team for COVID at a college, and I can think of one, I researched it last night, the head of the scientific advisory team for the COVID policies receives between $600,000 and $900,000 per year for his lab, right, from the NIH. If you're in that position, you are going to not be inclined to question the guidance of an organization that's within that purview, of the one funding you. So again, that's the question we wanted to raise.
So you are the co-founder of NoCollegeMandates.com. So can you tell us a little bit about that and how you guys are kind of combating mandates like this and what you're kind of working on and some resources for listeners to look into?
Sure. Thanks, Kate. Yes, NoCollegeMandates.com is an organization. We are a coalition of about 2,600 stakeholders throughout the country, and we are parents, students, professors, staff members who have a stake in colleges that mandate vaccination as a condition of matriculation for students and also as a condition of employment for many of their staff and professors. We founded the organization in January. It grew very, very quickly. And I think that speaks to the number of people out there who are very concerned about these mandates. So we have a Telegram group, and you can join that through the link on our website, again, NoCollegeMandates.com. And in that group, what you will be able to do is to find resources to help you or your student navigate the particular mandates at the college of your interest. And what we have found is once you find people in community where in your college area, you're able to exchange information, find out what works for other people, decide on what kind of efforts you want to make to write to the committees to try to push back against these mandates. The benefit of this is it's very difficult to find like-minded parents at colleges or like-minded stakeholders because you don't live in the same community as these people. So we tried to create a community where people could find each other. We also have a lot of resources in terms of legal assistance, and we're doing some legislative pushes. So it's just really a group where you can find community members that will help you in this fight. And as far as what we're doing as an organization, we are putting together petitions and letters that try to continue to bring new information and new data to college committees to get them to at least be curious about the data that is evolving that goes beyond what the CDC recommendations are, which again, they appear to be following.
That's great. It sounds like a great organization and a big resource for both parents and students in the day and age where there's so many mandates. Is there anything else that you would like viewers to know about your work, about the article, about anything, any more data that's coming up that you've been aware of?
Well, a couple of things. We're starting to see, the results and the fruits of your organization's labor with the Pfizer documents that are coming out. So I would encourage anyone to make themselves aware of that and to be able to share that with colleges as sort of a suggestion that they look at this data too. And again, it's joining the group, finding like-minded parents, following us on Twitter at NCM4, the numeral ever. That's our Twitter handle. And my Twitter handle is at Lady Spalding 11. That's SPAULDING 11. And we share a lot of information there. And I think it's just to step back and ask yourself the question of whether it is appropriate, and I would say it is not, for colleges to be practicing this one-size-fits-all medicine on their students. And I also wanted to add in the point that most colleges, I can't think of more than maybe one, they don't recognize natural immunity. And at this point, a great many of their students have had COVID, and they've had Omicron pretty recently, and yet those kids are still required at a lot of campuses to get boosted right away. So I would just encourage everyone to continue to investigate this, to continue to push back against the college. And if you are a parent with students who are starting to look at colleges, I would encourage you to consider colleges that have not mandated, that have not had strict measures on campus, so that your student can be free to choose their own medical interventions and not be placed under surveillance testing and masking and quarantine that do, no ostensible good to protect the community.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ms. McGary, for joining us. I'm Kate Malgoza, and I'm with Ms. Joni McGary, and I will have links below to her social media links and links to NoCollegeMandates.com as well for you to look into resources and educate yourselves on what's coming out. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf of Daily Clout, and I am asking you to please, if you like the video you just saw, support us, become a member, donate. You can send checks to P.O. Box 24, Millerton, New York, 12546, or go to Daily Clout, DAILYCLOUT, become a member or donate. Thank you so much for your support. Every penny goes for paying our hardworking staff, paying hosting costs, and paying our lawyers who have been leading the fight to keep you safe and free, to keep the Constitution safe and to keep you free. Thank you so much.